This is Cashing Out on VSiN, the sports betting network.
This is Cashing Out right here on VSiN, the sports betting network. Greg Hoops Peterson taking you through the next 3 hours as we've got ourselves a lot of fun to take a look at. Few playoff games in the NHL and the NBA that are starting to wrap up, so we'll give you guys a little bit of something there, and then we'll start turning it forward to Sunday as we've got a lot of action that's going to be happening on a very strangely late Easter Sunday. I don't know about you, but I'm someone that I personally have a birthday on March 27th. I remember a few years ago, my birthday landed on Easter. How it's now 24 days later, I will never, ever know. So we will try to be able to decipher that. But you know what? We've got a quartet of great guests that are going to be joining me tonight as we're going to be hitting upon a little bit of everything. In 15 minutes, we're going to be joined by Evan Abrams. He does tremendous work over at Action Network. We're going to be talking about the NFL Draft. That is coming up within the next few days. And this year's NFL Draft, it feels like there just hasn't been as much action as you think. There's a lot of teams lying out there in the weeds. There's a lot of smoke screens. There's a lot of teams that they're trying to throw you off the scent, and they've done a very good job thus far. So we're going to be talking to Evan all about that and so much more. And then in about 45 minutes, Jim Turvey. He does great work over at Action Network. Taking a look at the NBA. We're going to get his thoughts in terms of the Saturday games in the NBA. Turn it forward to Sunday as well. What can we expect moving forward? And are the Lakers going to lose the next game by 20-plus points as well? Because right now, they are down, and they are down bad. We'll let you guys know about that in a second, but hour number 2, have to talk a little NHL. Jonathan Davis, he's one of the best. He's here at the network, and he does a tremendous job over at SiriusXM as well. He's going to be joining me. We're going to get a little bit of reaction from what he's seen here in the NHL playoffs, some of what he's taking a look at moving forward, and obviously those games that we are going to be seeing on Sunday. And then in hour number 3, Sean Green, he does a tremendous job over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. He's going to be joining me, and we're going to be talking to NFL Draft with him. But if you're taking a look at this Lakers versus Minnesota Timberwolves game, this game is pretty much finito. It is 113-92. You've got 2 minutes and change remaining. We are most likely going to be seeing the benches clear for both of these teams, as we're going to be seeing guys that you typically wouldn't see in an NBA playoff game getting a little bit of a run here. And I think the only intrigue here is what is going to be happening with regards to the closing total in this game, because man, this has been a Lakers team that they've won 14 of 38 from 3. They haven't been too bad there. Luka Doncic just had 37 points, where LeBron James, not necessarily the best game for him, 19 points, 5 rebounds, but just absolutely nothing off the bench for this bunch. Meanwhile, Naz Reid has been able to contribute 23 points, and you did have a little bit of a scare earlier in this game with Anthony Edwards going down with a bit of an injury. You weren't sure if he was going to be able to return to the game. Oh, did he return? And oh, did he look rock solid as well? So it's been big for this bunch as well. This is a closing total, by the way, more around about 218.5. So if you're sweating out this total, you're going to need a little bit of bonsai charge here late, and I don't think that you're going to be able to get it. So we should be able to get the under in this spot, and well, with the LA Lakers, they're going to come nowhere close to covering this game, as this is going to be an outright win for the Minnesota Timberwolves. And what's very intriguing to see what we all got in terms of the NBA slate on Saturday, as right now, I can tell you right now, I'm someone from the great state of Wisconsin. I was thinking that this was not going to be going the Bucks' way with not having Damian Lillard in the fold, and boy, oh boy, did they get destroyed 117-98, and I think that entire East is going to be intriguing in terms of the teams to try to be able to challenge the Cavaliers and the Boston Celtics, because I just think that they're on a collision course. I do think that if there is one team that would have been able to take them down if they were at full health, that was the Bucks, but not having Damian Lillard out there, that pretty much gave them no shot whatsoever of being able to do so, so that's a little bit of an issue. And then we did see a little bit earlier on in the day as well, the Nuggets, they went to overtime with the Clippers. They find a way to be able to persevere. You had Nikola Jokic come, I believe, a rebound away from a triple-double, but for the LA Clippers, I know that there was a lot of fanfare and a lot of hype on them coming into the game. They do cover this one. Very much a rarity in the NBA, because I still remember there was a stat that over the last 3 years in the NBA, north of 85% of games in which you have an NBA playoff game, north of 85% of the time, the team that wins the game outright just covers. You don't have a lot of games that are landing on these tight spreads. So that's something to take a look at, and this was one of those games in which the spread very much did come into play, with James Harden being able to contribute 32 points. So do think that there's a lot to be able to take a look at there. And when it regards to the LA Lakers team, they're just going to go down in a fire heap. 115-92 with about $1.30 remaining. And we did just get a goal, by the way, in terms of the NHL playoff game that we're looking at right now. The Colorado Avalanche were in a pretty comfortable spot, up 2-0, but the Stars, they're able to put the biscuit in the basket. You had Rope Hines be able to get a goal. That is his first of the postseason, so they are on the board. It is a count of 2-1, and going to be a very interesting series out here. And I just think that the entire NHL playoffs this year is going to be so fascinating because the Winnipeg Jets were your overall, shall we say, point leaders in terms of the regular season, but I don't know if there's a lot of faith in them. Now, we know that the Toronto Maple Leafs, time and time again, when it comes to more of the Eastern Conference, man, they just have not been able to break through. They've always come in with a lot of fanfare. They haven't been able to break through, but they are a team that was very highly touted, and they're very highly seeded in terms of what we're going to be seeing out there. And then we're going to be seeing on full display tomorrow. The Vegas Golden Knights are going to be taking on the Minnesota Wild in terms of that series as well. I think that that's going to be a relatively fun one. I think that there's a lot of intrigue to be had there, and I still remember the Avalanche were the big bad wolf a few years ago out there in the West. Now they're a little bit of an underdog in this series against the Dallas Stars, but right now looking good. 2-1, 12:38 remaining here in the third period, as it is cashing out with myself, Greg Hughes Peterson, right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. And if you're taking a look on the baseball front as well, as we'll be hitting all 15 of those games. They're going to be coming up on Easter as well. We've got one game that's currently in progress, 3-2 right now. The San Francisco Giants in the lead over the Los Angeles Angels, and for Landon Roop, pretty good start here thus far. He's won 6 innings. He has allowed 2 solo home runs, which I think is very interesting because for Roop, the big thing that I was taking a look at prior to him coming into the start was the fact that he just hasn't given up the deep ball. As a matter of fact, he had went 65 1/3 innings prior to the start for his entire career. So that dates back to the beginning of the 2024 campaign. Had allowed just 3 career home runs. Well, sometimes that'll change when Mike Trout comes up to the plate. Pair of solo home runs for him. So this feels like the Angels that we all know and love. Mike Trout hitting solo home runs, and yeah, that's interesting. But with that said, for Mike Trout, I also find it very fascinating that he's got 8 home runs this year, and I believe that this is now total 14 hits for him thus far this season as well. So he has either hit the deep ball or he has not hit at all, but do think that you got a lot of fun out here. And that entire American League West, I think, is going to be a division that you want to be taking a look at, because with the Walker Texas Rangers right now, they are in the lead, and they were able to get a win over the LA Dodgers on Saturday. But you got a Seattle Mariners team that has their dramatic home and road splits in terms of their offense, just because the ballpark out there in Seattle, it does very much suppress the offense out there. You've got an Astros team that's right now 10-10, and they are notorious for slow starts. When you start having Yordan Alvarez and guys being a bit there, that's going to be big for them. And then you have the I just said the Oakland A's, the Sacramento A's. I'm going to do that all season long, and don't lie to me, I'm sure that many of you have done that as well. But that said, for the Athletics, they were able to get a win over the Milwaukee Brewers on Saturday as well. So I do think that you've got a lot of fun to be had there. It is officially a final between the Timberwolves and the LA Lakers. Under does indeed it, as the Timberwolves 117-95 winners. Just an absolute butt kicking in this one. And I always do find it to be very intriguing to take a look at these postseason series and these postseason games, because with a LeBron James led team, typically it is a little bit more of a feel it out process in the first game or two, and then they're really able to take that information, then they're able to generate it moving forward. But I also do think that there's going to be a lot of live betting opportunities throughout this series as well. I was thinking about pulling the trigger on the Lakers here in game number 1. I am very, very glad that I did not, because, man, that would not have turned out well if you took the Lakers live at pretty much any point in the game. I don't think that he got there on any of those numbers, but you had Anthony Edwards go out of this game. He returned, and then he immediately hit a few float-away jumpers and everything like that, so he looks to be relatively fine. You want to be checking in on his status tomorrow, but for the Timberwolves team, just a very relentless and fearless team in terms of being up at the road. And this Western Conference in general, I do think is very intriguing outside of Oklahoma City Thunder. I do think that for Oklahoma City Thunder, they should be that team that is able to make it to the finals. They won the conference by 16 games. You just don't see that very often, where a team is able to flat out dominate like that, albeit this is a young team that they haven't really been through the wars of being in the postseason. And that is the one thing that I take a look at in the NBA. Unlike so many other sports, it does feel like you sort of, for lack of a better term, if you're a video game fan, you level up. Like, you're a team that's outside the playoffs, playoffs, you draft a few good guys, and then you make the play-in round, and then you make the first round. You get a round further and a round further. I don't know if the OKC Thunder can quite take that jump into the NBA Finals, but they certainly have the goods to be able to do so. What else stands out to me about the OKC Thunder is that they've won their road games thus far this season, going 32-8 on the road this campaign. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible what we've seen, everything from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to what you've been able to get out of the big men as well. I mean, they have just put this team together so well. Even some like a Kason Wallace being able to step up, give you some relatively good, tough, tenacious defense. Like, everyone just knows their role. They play it so well. You've got that head of the stake at Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and then everyone else just falls in line. Heck, Jalen Williams, a guy that I still remember really liking when he was coming out of Santa Clara a few seasons ago. He has been just so rock solid for this team as well. So we shall see what's going to be happening in this series. But we know that there was a lot of people bullish on the LA Lakers, and one game does not define a series. There's no fans or buts about it. You do want to be looking much further than that, but not necessarily a great start for them. And then we also did see a not necessarily great start for the Detroit Pistons as well, as they did fall to the New York Knicks. And if there was a team out there in the East right now that I had to pick, if it wasn't going to be the Boston Celtics and the Cleveland Cavaliers matching up in the conference finals, which I very much do think is going to be the case, I would be leaning a little bit towards the New York Knicks, even with all their injuries. And it is a case where you do have a bunch that has been deep in the playoffs before. I'm not going to say that they were able to bust through and everything like that, but we remember a season ago, OJ Anunoby dealing with all those injuries. He looked rock solid today. Jalen Brunson was able to do a nice job being a QB with 34 points. And for the Detroit Pistons, I do think that this is one of those classic teams that they were able to bust through this year. They did a really nice job of being able to take strides forward. Probably just a year where they take a little bit of seasoning. They're going to be able to know a little bit more about the process of the playoffs. And then from this year on, I should say from next year on, that's when things really start to go for them. And things are going well for us because we're taking a look at the NFL draft. Evan Abrams, he does a tremendous job scouring all things football. He joins me next right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Out here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We're back here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Great to be joined by this man on the Progressive Guest Line, as we've got Evan Abrams. He does tremendous work over at Action Network. Taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of football. He's doing excellent work. Taking a look at what we're getting in the NFL draft, as this has been a wild one to say the least in terms of lead up. A little bit of a strange one at that. And Evan is joining me right here on the Progressive Guest Line. Evan, great to get you aboard. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I mean, I think the first thing you start with when you talk about this draft is the fact that we just haven't had any trades. I mean, you've kind of seen the statistics from a bunch of different outlets, but 1993, last time we've been this deep into the process without any first-round trades, no movement, nothing going on from that front. And I think it says a lot about the prospects. I think it says a lot about the markets and some of the players that are going at the top of the draft. I mean, listen, the first thing I feel like we should talk about is the odds, just on these top picks, because we were talking about it in the break. I mean, at the moment, it feels like the odds makers think it's over, while you kind of see some of these other people saying, well, wait a minute, there might be an opportunity for some other players. But at the moment, the top four picks kind of feel solidified, which is interesting.
Yep, and how about if we do address that? Because picks 1 through 4, they are pretty much slotted in with the favorites to be able to go in those top 4 picks, all being minus $4 or greater. Because the number 4 pick, Will Campbell, he's minus $4. The number 3 pick, Abdul Carter, he is minus $6.50. Travis Hunter is minus $9. And if you want to take a shot to have Cam Ward go number 1, you're going to be laying a lot of money for nickels back in return. So what do you make out of that? Because I do think that it is really intriguing, because you bring it up, the fact that we all think that it's very wide open. I certainly do think that it's very wide open, aside from maybe Cam Ward at number 1, but the odds are telling us something different.
Yeah, I think probably the most interesting spot would be 4 with the Patriots. I mean, I even see Will Campbell up to minus 950. And I see some opportunity for at least something different there. Now, if you look at the odds, at least at some of the books that I'm looking at, you've got Abdul Carter at 2, Ashton Genty at 3, and Membu, the offensive tackle, at 4. I still believe at the 4-5 slot. Now, at 5, Mason Graham minus 130, minus 140. It's kind of been like that, at least for the last month. I still feel an opportunity to potentially put some money on Genty at 4 and 5. I mean, after you get through, let's say, Ward, Hunter, and Carter, say that's the 1, 2, 3. I still feel like at that point, it's a preference draft. It's something where you're looking for what is the best player you think available that you think can make the best impact, because depending on what your needs are, I think it changes a little bit. And I think New England is going to look at that across the board or even trade out. And I think the trade out aspect kind of makes me interested. I see Genty at 14-1 to go 4 and basically 3-1 to go 5, which is incredibly different if you think about a trade. And the first spot for the trade, I think, would be New England, but I'm curious of your opinion there, because that's kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah, with New England, I think that they're the big unknown. Does someone perhaps trade up to be able to get a quarterback is something that you do want to consider as well? Do they try to be able to stockpile picks? Does someone, as you mentioned, trade up to be able to get Ashton Genty as well? And I feel like he is the biggest question mark with regards to this draft outside the quarterbacks as well, because we're hearing a lot in terms of him perhaps going to like the Raiders is something I've been hearing a lot about. And I do think that with regards to value of the running back spot, for Ashton Genty, the best thing that happened to him is what we saw this past season with Saquon Barkley and all those guys that signed in free agency having just massive years and being able to put a little bit more respect and value back on that position.
Yeah, I think that's going to help him. I also think the wide receiver class, when you talk about him and Hampton, I think they're really high across the board. Like, I think Hampton is 100% a first rounder. A lot of them mocked at 20 to Denver. I even think it's the possibility that if Genty goes in that 4-5 slot, someone might get jumpy in, the teams to potentially take him before that 20 slot. But I do feel like both those running backs going to be good in the NFL, and I think they're going to be drafted like that. In terms of the markets, so 9.5 under for Genty is minus 400, and 6.5 under I see at minus 240. If it's me right now, I think the 6.5 is relatively safe, and I'm going to talk about another minus 200 range bet I like, but I do feel like 240 is safe. Like, if it's not 4-5 where I'm taking my long shots, I do think the Raiders take him at 6. And I don't think if he makes it to that slot, they're going to go to anyone else just because of the talent and ability he has and the position of need.
I do agree with you. As Evan Abrams, he does such great work over at Action Network. He's joining me right here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. And I do want to address this a little bit more as well, because I do feel like in terms of just betting the NFL draft, it's really unlike any other event all year long, sans maybe like the NBA draft, in terms of laying juice, in terms of plus prices that we do take. How do you just take a look at things in general? Because I think a lot of people will be hesitant to lay minus $2 on something like you just laid out. But if you think that it's 80% to hit, minus $2 is really good value, in my opinion.
Yeah, betting drafts in general is a completely different experiment. And I guess the one thing I would say is it's when you're getting in. Like, if you're listening to us chat right now and you haven't bet $1 on the draft, you are a completely different customer to what I would probably recommend than someone who already has a portfolio. Or if you're going to tell me that you're only betting tonight because you're interested in the conversation, then maybe you won't be betting over the next week. You're probably wanting to bet a little bit differently. And I think it's completely separate from betting games, betting futures, betting props. I just think this is a completely different animal. So that's why I think giving advice in this area is a little hairy, but that to me is kind of the beauty of the draft. Especially this gambling ecosphere we talk about with these different draft positions and different ways of taking markets, if that makes sense.
Yep, and I still remember when it was out here in Las Vegas. That was just absolutely incredible a few years ago, to say the least. There were quite a few draft picks because I'm out here at Circa right now. And by the way, if you're looking to be able to save a little bit of money on a trip to Vegas, go to circalasvegas.com. Utilize the promo code VSiN15. You get 15% off of all of Derek Stevens' properties, the D, Circa, Golden Gate. They're all tremendous. But I remember doing my show, being out here, and I was walking back, and there was a bunch of people waiting out there in in the lobby, like for the NFL draft picks, what have you. So that was absolutely incredible. But that said, what else I think is going to be incredible, where does Shedeur Sanders land, I think is a big question with everyone right now, because in terms of mock drafts, there are quite a few that have him in the top 10. Some have him sliding as low as 21. Some have Jackson Dart going way above him. Some have Jackson Dart going way below him. All of a sudden, we're hearing a little bit more about Jalen Milroe as well. What is your thoughts with regards to the Shedeur Sanders conversation? Because I feel like there are some people that love the fact that Deion Sanders is his father, and there are some that absolutely hate it.
Yeah, I mean, let's just kind of talk about it from just a betting perspective at the current moment, because as a prospect, I think it's kind of an enigma, because you expect Deion Sanders' son to have athletic ability, and Shedeur Sanders didn't get that part of Deion. Like, he is a completely different player than a runaround scrambler, someone who can make plays. Like, that's just not who he is. And I think it kind of changes who he is as a prospect and kind of the conversation around, let's say, the number 2 quarterback in this draft. So that's kind of the intriguing part about this. The way I would gamble on it on Saturday night at the moment with draft week here, so his over-under is 8.5. The over is pretty much like minus 400, minus 350, wherever you look, which is just a difficult thing to buy into. So I think you probably have to look at specific team taken and take a few dart throws, because I just don't think that, because if you're going to take under 8.5, I might as well just bet 5-1 to go to the Giants at 3. Because I just don't see many other opportunities to him to go in that slot. Do you disagree with that?
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that at all. It's just one of those things where it's like, man, what do these teams do at the quarterback spot? Because you obviously still have with the Pittsburgh Steelers the whole Aaron Rodgers conversation, which sounds like that's not going to be dying down anytime soon whatsoever. You've got a few teams that might be those surprise teams to be able to take a quarterback, and that leads me into this as well. How many quarterbacks do you think ultimately will go in the first round? Because I think that that's such an intriguing question, with the fact that I don't think that Jalen Milroe should go in the first round, but I'm just still throwing off by the fact that he got an invitation to the green room.
He did, and his odds have been falling ever since that announcement. I mean, right now at plus 130, I've seen as low in some spots to go in the first round. I just don't see it myself. Like, if you're going to be enamored by that position, I think it's still the top 3 guys in Ward, Sanders, and Dart. And I think Dart and Sanders potentially could go in different slots. Like, I've seen Dart at 9, Sanders at 21. You can, talk about Sanders at 3 or 9. Like, there's lots of different combinations there. I just don't see Milroe being a 30, 26 I think the Rams are 26. Yeah, the Rams are 26. So one of those slots, I just don't see it. So in my opinion, I mean, when we talk about maybe early second round, or maybe there starts to be a discussion of what's left there and someone who wants to make a splash or make a move, it's just first round, I see way other needs on other teams. So that's probably the way that I would play it. I think there's probably a better first round pick in terms of betting to take. Like Milroe at plus 130, all good there. I kind of like Amos, who's the cornerback. He's moved from plus 250 to plus 130. To me, anything over plus, even odds.
Absolutely. Always great to be able to get Evan aboard. And coming up next, let's talk some baseball on VSiN, the Sports Betting.
Welcome back to Cashing Out here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We're back here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. It was great to be joined by Evan Abrams, taking a look at what we're all getting in the NFL draft. It is an absolutely wild NFL draft where if you can figure out what's happening, you do let me know, because I am very, very confused by everything that has been happening with the lack of trades, with the amount of smoke screens that we have been seeing in general. It has made things very much interesting to take a look at, the say the least. That just is a word that I keep coming back to, but Evan, he does a great job taking a look at parsing through it all. So a big thanks to him for joining me in the last segment. And how about if we do give you guys a little bit of a capper on this as well? You very nearly got the closing over in terms of the Colorado Avalanche and the Dallas Stars. 3 goals in the final 7 minutes and change. That allows the Colorado Avalanche to be able to go from leading 2-1 when I was last checking in. That was about 15 or so minutes ago. They now win this game by a count of 5-1. Just goes final. So That was not great for a Dallas Stars team, as right now deal with quite a few injuries. They were the team that has home ice advantage, but that home ice has gone by the wayside in this one. And for the Dallas Stars, they're going to look to rebound here in game number 2. So we'll be taking a look at a little bit of hockey a bit later, as we're going to be joined in a little bit less than an hour from now from one of our good friends, Jonathan Davis. He does amazing work here at the network, so we'll get his thoughts on that game. We'll be taking a look at what we're going to be getting in terms of the games on Sunday as well. So some good, clean family fun there. And then we do have really one game remaining in terms of the sports calendar. That would be the San Francisco Giants and the LA Angels game. Right now, Giants are up 3-2 in the 9th inning. Been a very fascinating game, to say the least, with the Giants being able to get up 2-0 very early on in this game. Ever since then, it's really been a case where things have died down a little bit more, and as a matter of fact, it's going into now the bottom of the 9th inning, with the Angels looking to be able to rebound and looking to be able to recover, with their lone form of offense right now being a pair of home runs from Mike Trout. And we did see some very, very brutal baseball beats here on Saturday, because if you were taking run lines, and I do think that there are certain chances where you're able to find some good value on these run lines, well, you were very much burnt by some of them. Like, I personally had this one. The Philadelphia Phillies and the Miami Marlins run line. Phillies were up 7 runs going into the bottom of the 9th inning. They give up a 6 spot to a Miami Marlins team that prior to the game, they were averaging 2.8 runs per game on the road for the season. They score 6 in the top of the 9th inning to be able to toast that run line. And if you're looking to lay the money line of the Philadelphia Phillies, minus 220. Personally, in these cases, with just the few amount of games that land on one run, I actually do think that the run line, even though you got burnt in this case, it still is a little bit of a better value when it's all said and done. But man, this is one where you got burnt, and this is fortunately one where I did not take the run line, but if you did take this run line, my goodness. The Washington Nationals and the Colorado Rockies game, with the Washington Nationals, they were up 12-2 in the bottom of the 7th inning, and they went from up 10 runs going into the 7th inning. They went 12-11. They gave up 9 runs in the final 3 innings to not be able to cover the run line. So if you had that one and you're only getting a small number on the run line, just because with those games out there at Coors, you have a lot of scoring, so you're only getting like a plus 115, plus 120 or so. But man, those were some tough beats. If you had the New York Yankees as well, that's another one where I can tell you, as a Milwaukee Brewers fan, probably don't want to be trusting Devin Williams in too many high leverage situations. And, well, he did not come through in this one. That's about the nicest thing I could say about him. 10-8. The Tampa Bay Rays down 4 runs in the 9th inning. They win this game by multiple runs. That's one where if you took a run half with the New York Yankees, that was a kick in the family jewel. So, yeah, we've got a lot of intrigue that's right now happening in Major League Baseball, and I'll be breaking down all these games throughout the show here tonight. What else I think is very intriguing is doing a little bit of a progress checkup in terms of some of these trends that we are seeing in Major League Baseball right now as well, because I do think that you're able to gather a little bit of something, because I remember last year you were able to find just such good value in general in things like the Miami Marlins and their overs at home that was sitting at north of 70% last season. You've got some of these teams that just have some, shall we say, outlier-ish numbers, to say the least. There are some teams that are great to the run line. There are some teams that are terrible to the run line. But what just continues to stand out to me right now, the lack of offense that we're getting with the Kansas City Royals. They lose once again on Saturday, that by a count of 3-1 to the Detroit Tigers. And that's just really something that is making me scratch my head, because you saw it towards back half of last season when Vinny Pasquantino went down with an injury for the Kansas City Royals. At that point, that's when the offense went down the toilet bowl, and that's when you just weren't able to get any production. I thought with him coming back, I thought with them being able to revamp a few things in the offseason, bring in Jonathan India, that was going to be able to, shall we say, be able to mask some of their faults from a season ago. Well, that has not happened, because right now the lone team that entered in the day on Saturday averaging fewer runs per game than the Kansas City Royals, that would be the Colorado Rockies. Like, for the Kansas City Royals right now, they are averaging fewer runs per game than the Chicago White Sox. Not a place where you want to be, to say the least. So we've got a lot of fun that's happening out there in baseball, as it is cashing out with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, and We do have ourselves a lot of fun if you're taking a look at baseball on ProfitX as well, because ProfitX, it is a peer-to-peer sports betting exchange that's available in 40-plus states. It's the first of its kind, and you're able to make sports picks against other groups of fans rather than the sports books, and typically this gives you better odds by about 10 to 20%. You can even request your own odds as well. Download ProfitX, utilize that promo code of VSiN, and earn up to $200 in ProfitBets cash or ProfitX cash over your first month. That's over at the ProfitX app. Utilize that promo code of VSIN, as it is cashing out with myself, Greg Peterson, right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. And how about if we do dive in a little bit in terms of what we're going to be seeing on Sunday as well? And I do want to highlight this game because right now we've got a lot of TBD with it, and there's a lot of places that have removed this from the board. It's the Baltimore Orioles versus the Cincinnati Reds game, and you might be wondering why I'm highlighting this game right now. Who was supposed to be the starter on Sunday, and Carson Spires had to pitch in long relief on Saturday against the Baltimore Orioles. And Terry Francona, a legendary manager, a man that knows what the heck he's doing, when he was asked post-game what they were going to do for their starter, he just flat out said, "I don't know." Which that's always just good, clean family fun right there. When you throw out your starter a day in advance, your team loses the game anyway, and then you don't know who the next day's starter is going to be. So that's a lot of fun, but we were seeing this prior to it going off the board with the Orioles being in that neighborhood about a plus 135, plus 140, and I wrote this up for the VSiN website. If you're getting like a bullpen game of the Reds and you're able to get a similar number to this, I actually think it's good value. Like with the Cincinnati Reds, Carson Spires is not necessarily Mr. Inspires because he hasn't been that great as a starter. Was actually really good as a long reliever last year, but when he run into the role of a starter, his ERA went north of a 5. He doesn't really give you a lot of swings and misses. He's not necessarily the world's greatest in terms of command as well. Like if you're getting Brent Suter for a few innings, who used to be a starter, maybe get like a few innings out of Tony Santillan, you mix and match, Alexis Diaz, guys like this. I actually think that that's better than what you get out of Carson Spires, because going into the day on Saturday, you had a Reds team that was in the top 7 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. Now, some of these guys like Ian Gabo and company aren't going to be lighting the world on fire, but you know what? I actually feel relatively good about them. The Reds offense seems to be coming around a little bit more. Elly De La Cruz hasn't even necessarily been too great for this team at this point, and this is also a big giant fade of Charlie Morton. Charlie Morton right now looks very washed. In his 4 starts, an ERA that is north of an 880. That's not where you want to be. He's still getting strikeouts. He's still getting north of 8.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but the command has never really been amazing. It's still not amazing right now, and for the Baltimore Orioles, they did have to use up a few bullpen pieces yesterday. Now, I will say, you've got Yunier Cano, Felix Bautista. Both of these guys are pretty rock solid in what they're able to provide as well, so that's very much something that you do want to be taking note of. But that said, I do take a look at this sort of a spot, and if I'm able to get sort of what we were seeing in terms of the opener, the opening total was a 9.5, and you're seeing the Reds in that neighborhood about plus 135 or so. That'd be a number where I'd be very, very willing to dive in on that Reds money line, knowing that I'd be getting a little bit of bullpen game. Now, you do want to be mindful in situations like this. Sometimes the Reds have like one of these younger guys that they want to recall, and sometimes in general, bring someone back off the injured list, and they just did that a few days ago. As a matter of fact, Andrew Abbott, who was dealing with an injury towards the beginning part of the season, he has come back for the team to be able to give them a little bit more, I guess you could call it rough and tumble, but that said, I do take a look at this sort of a spot. If we can find something similar to that opener, would be taking a look at the under, and I'd be in on that money line as well. And then speaking of the Kansas City Royals, we'll do this very, very briefly. Right now, we're seeing that total in their game against the Detroit Tigers at a 7, and you're able to get a plus 190 on Michael Wacha and the Kansas City Royals, and I'm going to be willing to dumpster dive here on the Kansas City Royals. I do think that it's going to get a little bit better for them. Now, MJ Melendez and a few guys towards the bottom of the lineup just have not been able to find it, and the Royals have had some pretty demonstrative home and road splits with their offense, even dating back to the beginning of the 2024 campaign. Look at Bobby Witt Jr., and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about there, but I do think that for the Royals, just being able to get this big of a number against a guy in Drake Skubal, he had the first start of the season be relatively rough against the LA Dodgers. Ever since then, he's been able to do a pretty solid job. But Michael Wacha, you know that he's a steady Eddie guy going against the Detroit Tigers team that now is dealing with a few ailments with regards to that lineup as well. For the Tigers, haven't been quite the same bullpen as they were a season ago. That's one that I'm going to be taking a look at as well. And if time allows, we're going to be diving in a little bit further on that. But but something that we certainly do have to dive a little bit further in on, that would be the NBA and what we're seeing in terms of playoffs, as we've got Jim Turvey. He does tremendous work over at Action Network and Roto Grinders, joining me on the flip side right here on Cash It Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back to Cashing Out here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We're back here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. We're going to be joined momentarily by Jim Turvey. He does great work over at Roto Grinders along with the Action Network, and he's joining us to talk a little NBA playoffs. And here at VSiN, with the NBA playoffs upon us, we've got this. It's a VSiN Killer Sports NBA Playoff Challenge. We've invited 15 sharp minds from the world of VSiN and Killer Sports to go head-to-head. They're making 38 picks each from the start of the playoffs all the way through the NBA Finals. So that's going to be a total of 570 NBA playoff picks, all available to VSiN Pro subscribers. Picks are locked in an hour before each game, or before the first hour of each day of games. So that way you'll be able to get fresh insights on how to guide your bets every step of the postseason. And right now you're able to get full VSiN access all the way through August 1st. This for just $59. Don't miss this playoff edge. Head on over to VSiN.com/subscribe to sign up today, as that is going to be a lot of fun. And it's much like what we've been doing with so many of the different things here at VSiN. Like, I was a part of the college basketball challenge, obviously the football invitational, that always is sweeping the nation unlike any other. And it is going to be a really interesting NBA playoffs as well, because you did see the action that we got on Saturday. Few butt kickings out there. You got a nice game of which was close, where it was actually decided on the spread between the Nuggets and the LA Clippers. And I did think that there was the LA Clippers probably best shot of being able to find a way in terms of being able to find a way to steal a game out there in Denver. Now, with that said, you just never know what you're going to be able to get out of Russell Westbrook. But that said, that was one that did get away from them. And obviously with what the Lakers did here tonight, that was rough to say the least. But what is always tremendous is getting Jim Turvey aboard right here on the Progressive Guest Line. And Jim, always great to have you aboard. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I'm glad to chat hoop on one of my favorite weekends of the year.
Absolutely. And just what were your takeaways from what we saw on Saturday? Because we got a few butt kickings, one that I thought was very unexpected with the LA Lakers getting absolutely romped at home, and then we saw that interesting overtime game between the Nuggets and the Clippers.
Yeah, Nuggets-Clippers was definitely the game of the day. For me, I honestly, I'm surprised it was a 22-point game, but I think the Wolves are the story of the first day, and I think that they are better than the Lakers. Coming into the series, I was a little bit nervous matchup-wise, just because they don't really seem to have an answer for Luka. But he went for 37, and they won by 22 in LA. I think that Minnesota is just a much better team than this Lakers team. They weren't. The Lakers were a little smoke and mirrors when they went on that great run when Luka first arrived. It was, they had the number 2 defense. That's not the second best defense. This team wasn't really supposed to compete this year, and I think that the Wolves are just a much better team. So they're not going to shoot like that every game. LeBron will have better games. Reeves better have some better games if he's really going to be their number 3 guy. But I think that the Wolves, they were my pick before the series, and I love game 1, what I saw from them. So I think they're the story of the day.
Yep, the Timberwolves have been able to do a very nice job of being able to win games on the road the last few postseasons as well. We recall what they were able to do against the Denver Nuggets last season as well, so I think that that's a very well-made point there. And just how do you take a look at the entirety of the West? Because the OKC Thunder won the West by 100 billion games, but yet there's a lot of people that don't want to buy into them because they don't necessarily have that playoff experience. And if you look at teams outside the OKC Thunder, I think that pretty much 2 through 8 is very much evenly matched.
I mean, the West is absolutely stacked. I'm not as big a believer in that you need the experience. I think that's a very post hoc analysis we always do. Nuggets didn't have the experience until they won a title. Raptors, they didn't have any experience before or after, really. I think we kind of graft that on afterwards and say these teams have experience. The Thunder team, to me, is by far the best team in the West. I think they have a pretty good path, too. I think things broke kind of nicely for them. And I just think that they are hands down the best team in the West. And, whenever we start the postseason, there's always surprises, right? It's very rare that we get the 2-1 seeds squaring off in the finals. But I don't see a reason to not go with the Thunder right now. I think they're going to take care of business in the first round for sure. The game that was the game of the day, that Nuggets-Clippers series, whoever comes out of that series, I think is probably the second best team in the West, but they're going to be fresh off probably the hardest first round matchup, tired down. Whereas I think the Thunder are going to be really fresh. And even if Nuggets or Clippers are fresh and Thunder are tired, I just think the Thunder are the better team. So, we don't need to get ahead of ourselves and put them in the finals, but I do think that they are the class of the West by a full tier to themselves.
Yep, I totally agree with you. When you just take a look at what this OKC Thunder has been able to do and the way that they just completely dominated and won on the road, like they were able to win 32 plus road games thus far this season, that spoke to me. As Jim Turvey does tremendous work over at Roto Grinders, he's joining me right here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. And Jim, when it comes to the slate that we've got for Sunday, we've got a lot of bigger spreads on the board. We've got out of the 4 games, 3 of them with a spread of at least minus 12, minus 12.5. We're seeing one game that is very tight, though. The Golden State Warriors and the Houston Rockets. Right now, the Rockets are about a 1 to 1.5 point favorite. What do you make out of this game? Because, quite frankly, this is the only game that you're able to bet that you're able to, if you want to take the spread, either not lay or take double figures.
No, you're 100% right. I mean, because of the play-in, it kind of sets up weird where this Saturday is all the 3-6 and 4-5 matchups. So we get all the good games today, and then the Sunday is all the 1-8 and 2-7. So honestly, it's not the end of the world. You can do a little family day during the day, and then just make sure you're back in time for this Warriors-Rockets game, because this absolutely will be – this might be the most fun series of the first round. I lean towards Houston in game 1, but I do like the Warriors in the series as a whole. I think the Warriors are going to be a little bit banged up after that play-in game. Rockets have had a while to rest. But I do think that overall, I do like the Warriors. But honestly, my play with this game, the way I'm going to be approaching this, is I'm just going to bet each game to be a single-digit game, because I think these are going to be absolute battles. I really like – I mean, if people are listening to this, they probably know who Amen Thompson is. But the world is going to meet Amen Thompson, because he's going to be locking down Steph Curry, the greatest shooter of all time. He's going to be giving him absolute hell the whole way up and down the court. So I really, I think this first game, I'm leaning towards Houston being fresh. But overall, I do like the Warriors in the series. One look I'm going at, like a player prop for this, I'm looking at Kevon Looney's rebounds. The prop's at 4.5. I like the over there, but I also like some escalators out there. You can get him at like 8+ rebounds, around plus 500. Houston's double big lineup has been their best lineup this season. I think they're going to go to that pretty often. I think the Warriors are going to need Looney out there to help with some of the rebounding. Houston's just mashing teams on the glass, and that's kind of how they've taken a rather middling offense and been able to be one of the best teams in the league. So I think the Kevon Looney's going to see his minutes up. I think he's going to get his rebounds up. So that's a player prop that I really like for that first game. But this series, I'm just excited for. Honestly, the first 3 games of the day, I kind of lean towards, OKC rolling with Shea having a good game. Really basic take there. Magic Boston. I think the Magic actually are kind of interesting. And if you wanted a long shot on to play on the money line tomorrow, I think that's the one I would sprinkle. They just match up well with Boston in terms of being able to limit those threes that Boston loves so much. Miami, Cleveland, that's the game that I kind of want to see a game 1 the most. The Heat have been really good the last month, but it's kind of fake basketball, and Cleveland's the real deal. I know there's a lot of questions that people have about them in the postseason, but I'm pretty high on Darius Garland and Cleveland as a whole. I think that Garland, his postseason lack of success was more due to injuries in the past, and he's coming in healthy, and I think he's proven in the clutch in the regular season that he's a really good player in those big moments. I think that's going to translate to the playoffs, but I want to see it because, like everyone else, we haven't really seen it yet. So I want at least to see a game 1 in that series before I go too hard towards either direction.
Yep, I think that taking the time, being able to get that game 1 is going to be very important in this one. And I do want to ask you about this as well, because the way that I typically approach NBA playoff betting is I look for a lot of live opportunities. I don't know if you're the same way, but it does feel like there's a lot of volatility in these games and just in these series in general. And I want to be able to play that to be able to get a little bit of better numbers, because I know that they're going to be out there in most cases in a game, unless if it's just a complete and utter butt kicking.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't do as much live betting. I've always kind of meant to. I feel like I do all my prep before the game, and then when it's actually in the game, I get too caught up with just the fans and the action, and I'm like, I got to zoom out and actually do a better job of live betting. But you're 100% right that there's massive swings in these games, and we saw in the Pistons Knicks game. I'm not sure if you grabbed the live money line there. If you were paying attention, you probably got plus money because they were down in the fourth quarter rattled off a, I think, 21-0 run, ended up covering the original spread. So there's definitely some chaos in these games. I think one that you could look at, I know I just said that I don't mind the Orlando side of that Orlando-Boston game, but if they're up in the first half and you're able to get a Boston like alt spread to still cover or something, because Orlando has that there's always that possibility of them going on a big drought. And in the inverse, Boston is, one of the best 3-point shooting teams. I think that might be the game to look at. I think Oklahoma City is going to be up early, win the game. I don't think there's going to be a lot of live betting opportunities there. And the Miami-Cleveland, like I was saying, I kind of want to feel out that series. So I think if you're live betting, maybe keep an eye on Orlando and Boston on Sunday.
I think that's well said. And Jim, thank you so much for your insights. You do such a great job covering this great game of NBA.
Hey, really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
It was great to be able to talk some NBA playoffs with Jim. And how about if we highlight that Warriors versus Rockets series a little bit more and take a look at the Sunday MLB betting card right here on Cash It Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.